Okay, so I just literally woke up at the time they posted this on their Twitter. New character Gu Guinaifen. Oh my god, dude, someone's gonna absolutely destroy me in the comment section. She looks like Jinx from League of Legends, just orange hair, although Jinx does have red hair in her Star Guardian outfit. I think her design looks really cool. I mentioned that before in previous videos, but I want to show you all one more thing before we get into the video. Would you like to see me break that stone slab with my chest? Expect some fan art rather soon. Oh, I want to also mention, before we do actually get into the video, that I do enjoy covering the content as it does drop like this. We've done with the recent few videos, so we'll definitely do more of this in the future whenever Hoyoverse decides to A, drip market their characters, or B, maybe release trailers for certain things, certain teasers that we haven't already seen before. I find that really exciting, and I'm sure most of you enjoy that as well. We're getting Guinaifen in the future. I went on a limb and pronounced her name, or tried to, so hopefully I said it right. But with her being a Nihility fire character, she's going to be elemental coverage that we don't have right now. And she's Nihility, meaning she's going to have synergy with all of the other cast of Nihility characters, or more particularly Kafka, who is a character most of you probably have rolled for, and most of you are probably using. And if you're not using her, well, you probably use her as a support because she's a really strong character. So we can just deduce that she has something to do with dots. I don't think they would make another defense down character so soon. And I definitely do believe that a fire-based dot damage dealer would fit more in line with the other damage dealers in forms of dots we have currently in the Nihility path. Now, what I found a little interesting is that all of the fire characters for the most part have dots in their kit, but we can compare her to the current cast of dot characters that are 4-star, such as Sampo. And Sampo is already a pretty good character. He buffs the dots of your damage over time characters, and he applies the dots onto the enemy himself. He also has pretty good single break against single target fights when you're looking to hit the enemy that has wind weakness. So being able to apply a damage dot taken by the enemy's increase to every single enemy that is hit by this is very valuable, and it lasts for 2 turns, but the damage increase does increase as you level it up. I think Guinaifen should have something like this in her kit. Otherwise, you really wouldn't justify using her in the composition from Kafka when we already have options that exist. So Guinaifen has to essentially be on par with 4-star Sampo. Maybe that character also buffs damage over time, thus allowing her to work well with a character like Kafka. Because like I said before, we currently already have fire dot dealers. Maybe not exactly pure damage over time damage dealers, but still they have dots in their kit. A character like Himeko has actually had an increase in value recently. She's been working really well with Kafka. You probably found yourself using her alongside your Kafka because both are AoE damage dealers first and foremost. Himeko does have dots in her kit, and I do hype it up a little more than it should be hyped, but you're mostly looking at the damage she provides, just dots being an extra bonus alongside that damage, which then can be procced by Kafka, so it all makes it the better when you have Himeko in the composition with Kafka. Asta, who can also apply a dot with her basic attack, is pretty valuable, knowing that you can only apply one fire dot from each character at the same time. But for the most part, you're not really looking to use Asta for the dots she provides, mostly for the buffs in the form of attack and speed buff. And the fire damage buff is also very valuable, which will probably work really well, or no, will work really well with a character like Guinaifen because she is also fire of the element. Fire of the element fire. I find it so crazy how we just got Topaz's reveal yesterday and now we're getting another fire character who will probably work really well with Asta as well. Maybe those two characters have synergy and we just don't know it. But Asta is going to definitely see an increase in value. It wasn't like she was a bad character. I mean, she was definitely one of the, in my opinion, it might be a little biased, I maybe shouldn't say this, but one of the best characters. And she's going to see an increase in value ever since the release of the speed set, and on now going forward, the fire characters we're going to be getting. We recently got Luca, who has been a very nice character to use alongside your Kafka. He applies a rare type of dot which is known as bleed. Not many characters, if any at all, can apply it aside from Luca, and Luca is a character that can apply it without having to break the enemy's toughness bar. You can still get the bleed if you break the enemy's toughness bar, but being able to apply it when you want to is very valuable, and he also increases the vulnerability or the damage the enemy takes by dots, which is also very valuable as a 4-star damage over time character. So what I'm trying to say is that bleed is rare, so having a character that is able to utilize bleed or apply bleed is much more valuable than a character that can apply burn. I'm not saying Guinaifen is going to be a character that is useless. All I'm trying to say is Luca definitely has more value than a character like that, at least right now, because we don't have very many options in the game currently. Let me explain. Hook is a character that can apply dots, just like Himeko, except Hook is more reliable with the damage over time. This character is mostly known as a single target damage dealer though, with a couple of adjacent on the elemental skill. But you're looking at this character to do damage with the fire element, and break a lot of toughness bar from the enemy, all of which Hook can do pretty reliably. The damage over time that Hook provides is pretty valuable because that applies healing to the character, thus making the character a nice self-sufficient damage dealer for the most part. It can be pretty skill point hungry though, I will say that. The upcoming 4-star Nihility character has to be better than Hook at applying dots, but given that the character is Nihility, that's a given. And I just think that destruction characters are a lot more versatile in how they're played. That's why a character like Hook can be used in teams with Kafka, just like other characters, for instance, of the destruction path can be used in many you wouldn't think to be optimal situations, like Clara being used with Seal. You wouldn't think something like that would happen, but she is a lot more versatile than you think. However, I do think that character does have a lot of value in the team composition with Asta and Kafka. Kafka now being one of the best, if not the best AoE damage dealer in the game, while being one of the top characters in the game. She is a very nice team buffer in the form of damage over time. She's a very nice shield breaker because she applies a lot of AoE and she's constantly attacking the enemies even in single target settings. And she's very valuable because she can detonate the dots whenever she takes her turn. All of which is only done by this character and this character only. One of the things I want to mention is that Kafka being in the same composition with Asta is pretty good for a character like Guinaifen, because that character can essentially be a lot more valuable in the team composition than a character like Himeko. But if you have a well-built Himeko, it's really hard to say whether or not you would swap one for the other. I think you would probably find a lot of value in Guinaifen in single target settings, because I'm assuming that's what the character will be essentially used in most of the scenarios. But single target scenario sounds a lot more crucial for a character like Luca, because he does apply damage over time that does take away a percentage of the enemy's max HP, which is more valuable when you're fighting boss enemies. So that would make sense as to why he's mostly single target, whereas burn doesn't necessarily do a percentage of the enemy's max HP. And it's not to say that the burn effect is not strong. Burn effect has access to so many supports that can increase the damage of the fire dot, all of which we don't really have or isn't seen in many other paths aside from lightning. So you have a character like Guinaifen that would be very valuable in the team composition with Kafka. That's because she'll have really good synergy with a character like Kafka and Asta, both of which are really good in the dot teams as the two standalone characters you would use in most of the dot teams. So let me explain this team composition to you. You essentially have right now the fire dot team, or the team you're using to increase the damage of the fire dots, while also being able to apply team-wide buffs with Asta, attack and speed buff. And Kafka is of course the detonator, or the character that puts this team or makes this team work, because she detonates dots and she increases the dot damage essentially. Oh, I have to remember that I can't say increase dot damage because most of you don't have E2 Kafka, so I apologize. So when we place Himeko in the team scenarios, you'll find a lot of value in a character like Guinaifen, like you would use Luca, essentially being the character that buffs Kafka's dot damage while also being able to apply burns to the enemy, all of which Asta herself can boost with the fire dot damage she increases, or I should say the elemental damage bonus of the fire element that she increases, the attack, and the speed buff she provides. And then of course you have your defensive option here, which is anyone you want to slot in. If you want to use a character like Bailu, who is a lot more reliable, then suit yourself. And I think Bailu does have a lot of value in the team composition anyways, because if Asta is stunned herself, then her buffs don't go away, which I think most of you probably find value with whenever you're doing Memories of Chaos content. I'm trying my hardest to not say her name anymore. This 4-star Nihility fire damage dealer in the form of dots, I'm assuming, is going to be very good with Kafka, because she is going to be the option you can use over a character like Himeko or Hook, which is very important considering you have Asta in the same composition. So a tailor-made character for Kafka in the Asta team comp will be very valuable long term, and more elemental coverage is a good thing. as we covered in the previous video. Lastly, the Nihility has the best light cones in the game. I'm sure most of you know this at this point. Every single Nihility light cone has a lot of value. You just use whatever you have. Some may increase your effect hit rate, and some will just increase your dot damage greatly. Some will increase your damage dealt, which for a character like Kafka is very valuable, because the character does decent damage alongside her dots, which does most of her damage. So you take all that into consideration, then a character like the 4-star Fire Nihility character coming up will see a lot of value in team compositions because she is in a path that is never going to be doomed to fail. So there you have it. I recently made a video explaining why Kafka will always remain relevant, and that video is starting to come to fruition. The reason being is because Kafka is a character that is able to not only increase the damage of dots if you have access to her Eidolon 2, but she's also able to proc the enemy dots. She's also able to be played in team compositions you can't play with other characters, and she's essentially a very flexible character. So you can use any character you want to use with Kafka, even if you don't want to use a character like Asta, Luca, or Sampo. You just use what you have on your account. Heck, I find myself even using a character like Ting Yu most of the time, because Ting Yu applies the battery to Kafka's ultimate, which allows you to get in those double ult procs, which is very satisfying in AoE situations, I must say. This 4-star Fire Nihility character coming up is going to be very valuable for many players, so if you have the opportunity to pull for her, definitely pull for her, assuming you have a character like Kafka, first and foremost. Thank you for watching, and have a nice rest of your day. Or night. Peace.